Okay, today I'm going to walk through migrating a button from GitLab deprecated button to our new GitLab button. So I'm going to start just from the main epic that we have for Q3, which is to make GitLab development pajamas first. And first, I just want to point out that there is a getting help section here. So if you do get stuck along the way, there's multiple variants for different issues that we have, and you just don't know what to do next, like just reach out for help. There's lots of different options here. So in order to find my first issue, I'm just going to click on the first KR sub-epic for issue, and then I'll just go into this first one here to see what issue I can pick up. So I can see that this is related to GitLab deprecated button and migrating them to GitLab button. So there is a lot of documentation here in this epic in order to help you along the way. Make sure to read through this epic and have kind of a basic understanding of what's going on. But I'll walk you through all of this anyway, so then hopefully it'll feel more familiar the first time you are working on one. So once you go through, you'll see that there's a number of issues, 163, there's still 104 open. So a number of people have already picked up the issues, which is great. You'll just want to scroll down until you find one that's available. And you can read the file names here that are going to be migrated and potentially pick one up that is related to your area of the product. You may already have it set up in GDK, which will make it easier to test. So I went ahead and chose this issue here and I assigned it to myself. Immediately, the first thing I do is just look at the file name. So I can see from this file that it is related to the admin area, it's related to users in some way, and then this last part here tells me that, all right, this is about deleting a user and it's referencing a modal. So from this, just the name of the file, I can tell that this is going to do with deleting a user from within the admin area. So if I go in and find the file in my code editor, and I can do that by doing Command P, brings up this handy dandy search files. I can start typing delete user modal and bring that up. You can also hover over the file name and it'll show the full path, and you can make sure that that exactly matches what you're working on, which looks like this one does. So that's great. Searching for deprecated in the file will show you all the instances of where deprecated is currently being used. And the first step of this is really to replace the GitLab deprecated button with GitLab button. But before I start doing that, I want to make sure I can find these within the actual application. So looking at what needs to be migrated here, I can see that there are 3 instances of buttons here. And the reason I know that is because there are 3 opening tags, 1, 2, 3, and then there are also 3 closing tags. So 3 buttons within this file need to be migrated to the GitLab button. So let's go into our GDK. So I use QA tunnel. You don't need to worry about this right now. Localhost is perfect. I have my GDK set up. I'm pretty sure that this is in the admin area, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. Then we need to find something related to users. So on the left-hand side, here's users. And then I can see a list of users within my instance. So I want to find out where I would delete a user and I want a modal to pop up. So potentially within this, and I can see that there's multiple different options here, but we want delete user. So if I click that, and I see a modal and it has 3 buttons. So that looks pretty promising at this point. So these are disabled because you can't delete a user until you type in the name, which this tells me that there. So I'm going to go ahead, type in the name, and I can see my 3 buttons here. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a screenshot of this since I'm fairly confident that this is what I'm looking for to change. So now I'm going to go to my terminal and I need to check out a branch in order to make these changes. And I'm in the GitLab folder. You can see that here. You make your changes in the GitLab folder. You run GitLab development kit in the GitLab development kit folder. So that's where you would run GDK. So checking out my branch, I just like to name it with the ID of the issue. And then migrate admin delete user buttons. Great, and now I can see that I am within this branch and I can start making my changes. So I'll go back to my code editor and follow the steps within the issue. So it says using the migration steps or by manually editing the files, you want to replace instances of GlDeprecatedButton with GlButton. So I don't want to worry about the migration script. Maybe I don't know what that is. And it doesn't look like there's much to change here. There's only, 8 instances of deprecated. So I'm just going to do it manually. It just seems easier. So I'm going to go in and remove deprecated from all of these because I want to change GlDeprecatedButton to just GlButton. And I'm going to save just to keep my progress. Then the next step says convert each variant attribute to the new variant category combination using the variant mapping guide. The variant mapping guide is just right below within the issue. So if I take a look at the first button I have here, I see that the variant equals secondary. And if I look here, variant secondary says remove attribute. So I can just remove this completely. It doesn't tell me to add anything else, so I'm just going to do that. And then the second one, it looks like variant equals warning. So for variant equals warning, I want variant warning and category primary. So I'm going to take category primary and just copy and paste. And then let's see. This last one is variant danger. So look at the mapping. Variant danger equals variant danger and category primary. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing, copy category primary and save. So now I'm pretty sure that I've made the changes that I need to for these buttons. So I'm going to go back to my local instance and I'm going to refresh the page. I'll reopen the modal. And I want to look to make sure that these buttons have actually changed. I'm going to type in this name so they don't appear disabled anymore. And I can see that it does look like the styling has changed slightly. So the new buttons aren't drastically different from our old buttons. They have improved contrast for accessibility. So one easy way to tell that the buttons have updated is when you hover, they have this darker border around the buttons. And you can see that on each of these. Another way to know is to inspect the element and ensure that they are 32 pixels tall. Our old buttons, many of them that are in production, are 34 pixels. So if you see something that is still 34 pixels, then something is probably off. So from here, I can see that all 3 of these buttons have been updated. They look as I expect them to, and they do look to be the correct colors. So I'm going to go ahead and take a screenshot of these updated buttons. From there, I'll go back to my terminal, do a git status just to make sure that only the files that I've meant to change have been changed, and that is correct. It looks like only the delete user modal view file has changed. So I'm going to go ahead and add that, and then I'll commit it. And I will push it up to GitLab. So here it gives me a little URL. I can hit command and click it, which will open up the merge request. So you need to fill out, what does this merge request do? It migrates the deprecated buttons from the delete user modal in the admin area. And we need to add some screenshots. So I'll just name this before, after. And this is the next step within the issues. Take before and after screenshots and upload them to the merge request. So I'm going to go ahead and find my screenshots on my computer. Here's before. And after. Preview it, just make sure it looks all right. And you can see that you may be able to see it's kind of small, but the cancel button in particular has a darker border, so you can tell which one's before and after. A lot of these steps in the merge request template are unrelated to this work. So like all these security things, you can just put little dashes. I always assign it to myself until the pipeline passes. I'll add the milestone, and then also the feature maintenance label is the correct throughput label you want to add. And you can see that it already has closes 219835. That's the issue I was working on. And it automatically has that because over here I named my branch with that. So it just automatically adds it into the merge request description, and we'll close the issue once the merge request is merged. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and submit my merge request. And then I'm just going to wait for the pipeline to run. And it's currently loading, so that's why you don't see it here. And then once it has run, I'll come back and see whether it passed or failed and see what we need to do from there. Okay, I'm back and my pipeline is finished and I can see that it's failed, which is okay. I'm just going to go and look at what jobs have failed and try and figure out why they're failing. So go ahead and click on this first job. And in order to see why your job is failing, you'll want to look through the job log, which is all of this text in this kind of black square. So the error here isn't very helpful. I don't really know what's going on, so I'm just going to keep scanning up until I find something that tells me either what failed and how to fix it, or just a general failure notice and that I can kind of work from and figure out what's going on. So if I keep going up, I do see this here where it says one snapshot failed from one test suite, inspect your code changes, or run this command to update them. So I'm going to go ahead and just do what they tell me and run this command. So this can take a little bit of time, between like 4 and 5.5 minutes. So while that's running, let's go ahead and look at our secondary job that failed. And this says that job failed, also not very helpful. So I'm going to look at this other red text that stands out to me, and it says GitLab uses Prettier to format all JavaScript code. Please format each file that's listed below or run this command that would update all of them. So since we only have one file, it'll be a lot faster to just run this one command. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this recording while this command finishes, and then once it's finished, we can run this command together. Okay, that command finished, and just as a recap, so we were on this first job here, and it told me to run this command. We ran that command, and if I do a git status, I can see that 2 files were changed after running that command. So then we were going on to our second job that failed, and it was telling us that Prettier it formats the JavaScript code, and that we need to run a command for each file that is listed below. And it looks like there's only one, so I'm going to go ahead and run that now. Do another git status, and now there's 3 files. You can see that the delete user modal view is now listed because Prettier just updated it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of these, and then I'm going to commit them to my merge request. If I can give a commit message. Push them up. And then my pipeline will need to run again, so I will pause the recording again and then come back once that's finished. Okay, I'm back and I have 2 failing tests still. So looking at the first test, I am going to do what I did last time, where I'm just going to look for why this test is failing. So if I scroll up, should see something about what is failing, and it looks like it's this file here. I'm going to go back to my text editor and find that file. And if I search for deprecated, it does look like the deprecated instances of the button need to be removed from here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that looks like all that needs to change that I can tell from that test. So I'll go ahead and add it, commit my file, push it up. Take a look at this second test that's failing. Now this is a new test, it wasn't failing previously. So it looks like it's telling me to update the snapshots again, but that seems pretty weird because we just did that, so I don't see why we would need to do that again. So I'm just gonna try and figure out what snapshot it's complaining about. And it looks like it's related to this add context commits modal spec from what I can tell. So if I go back to my merge request, that snapshot related to that was removed when I ran that previous command. So since I don't know why this snapshot was removed with that command, I'm just going to ask the reviewer of the merge request, who is determined by review roulette, for his help, since I'm not really sure why that command removed that snapshot, and now it's complaining that it's been removed. So I'm just going to ping him. Just trying to get this command that told me to run. I'm going to open up my pipelines, find the job that is failing related to that now. So I can link it for him down here. All right, so this is a good example of if you simply don't know why something is the way that it is, just ask for help from someone and then they'll be able to answer and provide support, and then you'll get through it a lot faster. So I'm gonna stop recording and then come back once I hear from him. Okay, I'm back and I have heard from Zach, and his reply was that it's really weird that this is happening. The snapshot that was deleted shouldn't be deleted. When you run that command, it's weird that is occurring. And I also talked with Jarek, who's another designer here at GitLab on the Foundations team, and he was running into the same thing in his merge request. So what is happening is that there's a bug with this command, and we want to solve that separately from this merge request that we're working on. So what I ended up doing was just adding back that snapshot. So if we go to my commits, I added the snapshot back. And the way I did that was just adding a new file, and I copied and pasted the contents. I thought that would be the easiest and fastest way. And then I committed that change and push it up to my merge request. So the pipeline has ran, and you can actually see that I have another failure. So by going, I do see that the job that failed before from deleting that snapshot is now fixed, which is great. But if I go and look at this job that is failing, I can see that it's failing because I didn't capitalize the first letter of my commit message. So this is fairly common. If you forget, it'll pop up. All you have to do is come to amend your commit message. You would go back to your terminal, do a git commit --amend, and it'll pull up your last commit, and you can make those changes there. But that would mean that I have to run the entire pipeline again, and there's actually an easier way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you all what that looks like. So I have 4 commits here, and really I don't need all 4 commits. The only one that really matters is this first one. So if you go in and edit your merge request, and then select squash commits when merge request is accepted and save, what that's going to do is that when the merge request is merged, it's going to take all your other commits and squash them into one, your first one here. So now that I have that selected, I can go ahead and rerun this job. So now I just have to wait for this one job to run instead of the entire pipeline, which I would have had to do if I updated my commit here and then pushed up my change. So now let's just wait for this job to run. I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'll come back once it's done. Okay, I'm back, and my job has finished, and you can see that it succeeded, which is great. So if you look up here, you can still see that the commit subject must start with a capital letter, but now it's just a warning. And the reason for that is because we selected that option for squashing the commits on merge, which is right here. So now that the commits will be squashed on merged, that means that this commit that I have that doesn't have the capital letter will be gone once the merge request is merged, so the danger job succeeds. So my entire pipeline is passing now, and I'm ready to give it back to Zach for his front-end review, and we can get it merged from there. Hope this was helpful, and reach out to me or anyone on the Foundations team if you run into any issues or need any help while migrating components.